functions. Probably the one that a little bit tricky out of all of them is as long as on these mapping ones, A goes to X, B goes to Z, C goes to Y. So, I mean, you could write those as ordered pairs if you want to. Don't necessarily have to. But as long as A is not going to two things. So like if A went to X and then there was another error here that went to like Z, then that would not be a function. Okay? Or what you gotta be careful of sometimes, like if B goes to Z and C goes to Z, that's okay. Because we got two X values that are going to the same Y value essentially. So just be careful of your arrows. And if you want to write them out as ordered pairs, you can. It's a little bit different because they're letters maybe, but still the same idea. Okay, I had a lot of people ask me about number 7 yesterday. That one is just a straight, and here's the other thing that was throwing a few people off. The symbols are not quite correct here, because if I were to graph this, and that's what it's asking us to do, graph it and then visually estimate what the domain and range is going to be. The domain has to be 6 to infinity. So it's either got to be B or C. And the bracket there is okay. For the second part, the range goes 0 to infinity. And so this is the one that fits it the best, but I think it's a misprint because it should be a bracket here, because 0 should be included. And so on C here, this should be a bracket, 0 to infinity. It should start at 0 and go on up. But that would be the only one that would make sense anyway, that has both 6 to infinity and 0 to infinity. So C would be the best answer. And I think because it's the same program, I think the same error would be true on the one on the test tomorrow. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Okay, another thing that I think kind of helped a few people yesterday that I helped on number 8. The two ordered pairs that we have here. Oops, -2, 4, and 1, 1. Domain goes X to Y, right? And so as I look at my domain, I think by identifying those ordered pairs, it might help some people, because then you can just look at the X values and say, we're going from -2 to 1, right? But at -2, there's an open circle. So at this one, we want a parenthesis next to it. Down here, it's a closed circle, so we want a bracket. So that would be -2 to 1, with 1 being a bracket by it. Okay, so that one would be the best one. So it would be either B or D. And then for my range, my Y values are 1 to 4. 1 is a bracket, 4 would be a parenthesis. So 1 to 4, bracket to parenthesis. So the one that fits that one the best would be B. Okay. We had one like number 9 on the review. Number 10, had a few people ask me about that one yesterday. The biggest thing here is just being careful on how you put it into your calculator. Parentheses are going to be kind of a big deal. What makes this one a little bit more difficult is that when we have this function and the value that we're plugging in are all fractions. Okay, so if you have a fraction button on your calculator with which a lot of you do, I think I've shown you, some of you, like, you didn't even know you had a fraction button on some of your TI calculators. So not all of them have a fraction button. So if you don't have a fraction button, you're just going to have to put it like in parentheses, like parenthesis 1 divided by 2. Or in this case, 1 divided by 5, -1 divided by 5. But if you need help with that one, and then the answer is a little bit different. It's a fraction, and it's a really small fraction. Slope should be pretty straightforward. On number 12, some people ask me, can you just do the -a over b? Well, the -a over b gives me my slope, but it doesn't give me my y-intercept. So what I would recommend is just solve it for y, get it in slope-intercept form. then you know your slope, you know your y-intercept for your m and your b. Okay, those are pretty straightforward. 15, we got a couple of ordered pairs here. And first thing we should do is we should always find the slope, okay? And so when we find the slope here, what we're going to find out is we have 0 on top. And if we have 0 on top, then it really doesn't matter what my bottom number is. My slope is still 0. Okay, my slope. If 0 is on bottom, it would be undefined. So we got to remember the difference between those two. Now, remember, if I have 0 slope, my line is a horizontal line. It's going straight across. And so it's going to cross the y-axis. Now, pay attention to your ordered pairs here. And this is something you can look at right away. If I see that my two ordered pairs have the same y value, then that's almost a dead giveaway. And so my equation here, bless you, is y equals 5. And that's how we write it. Now, it's not necessarily wrong to write y equals 0x plus 5, but we don't really need that 0x in there, okay? We could just say y equals 5 and it would be okay. Okay, 16 and 17 were the ones that I was getting a lot of questions about. And really probably because as we solve these out, the y-intercept or the b value ends up being kind of a fraction that is kind of a big fraction. And when I say big fraction, that means the number on top is a little bit bigger than the number on bottom. Or just a fraction in general, we kind of freak out sometimes, okay? So what we got to know here, first, what makes 16 a little bit tougher is we don't know the slope. But remember that is when we can do the opposite of a over b. And so in this case, the opposite of negative 7 would be positive 7 over negative 9. And then the question says, write a new equation that would be parallel to it, okay? So parallel to this equation, we keep the slope exactly the same.
N through C, please come get your picture taken in the South Gym. Juniors N through C.
And so what I would tell you is you're never going to use that 121. Okay? That 121 is like a number that's not even used here. We're going to put it into y equals mx plus b. And we're going to use the order pair that they give us. So we're going to go 9 equals 7 over negative 9 times x. And then we have to solve for b. So from there, I'm going to let you guys finish that one out, but I'm just trying to help you get it set up. We got to multiply these two together, and then we got to get b by itself, so then I got to move this to the other side. So you got to make sure you have the right slope, and you got to make sure you put all that information in. 17, I would say the same thing, okay? Except this one gives me my original equation in slope-intercept form. So immediately we know the slope is negative 6 over 5. And it's asking us for perpendicular, okay? What would be perpendicular to negative 6 over 5?
5 over 6.
5 over 6, okay? So I'm going to use the slope of 5 over 6 because it says perpendicular. Okay, and here's another thing. Immediately, I would just cross off that y-intercept. I saw some people yesterday trying to use that y-intercept. That y-intercept has nothing to do with my new equation, okay? The only thing that we're using out of this equation is our slope. We flip the switch on it, make it 5 over 6. Now we're going to use the order pair 7, negative 1. And then we can put it into the slope-intercept form, just like we did on the last question. Okay. And once again, on both of these, you get a y-intercept that's a fraction. Okay, so don't freak out if you get a y-intercept that's a fraction. It's going to happen sometimes. I don't love kind of the setup of some of the questions and the way they ask it here. Some people are getting confused by all of this stuff. It simply just says solve. So we're just solving the equation, okay? Don't get caught up with some of those extra directions. It's just part of the program. that I used to make the test in the review. So number 19 would be the same thing, just solve. Notice that you have all real numbers and no solution as part of your answer, so you got to keep in mind that those are some possibilities. Okay, same thing on number 20. It's just another solve question. I don't like the way that they word some of these, and then this one doesn't actually say solve on it, so a couple people were kind of confused by what to do there. Just solve the equation. 21's the same way, solve the equation. 22, when we find a zero of a function, we just want to find, there's two ways to do this. A zero is also known as the x-intercept, okay? So there's two ways that I can solve this out. I can either take the function and set it equal to 0. We're just trying to find out what value of x makes this 0. And so then it's just a two-step equation to solve for x. Or you could also find the x-intercept. Okay, you could graph it in your calculator and you could say where does it cross the x-axis. So a couple of different methods to solve number 22. Either one of those should give you the same answer. Okay, 23 is just finding the x-intercept based off the graph. That one should be pretty straightforward. What is the x-intercept? The x-intercept crosses the x-axis right there, which would be at -3, 0. We also call that x equals -3. So the 0 and the x-intercept are the same thing. Okay, then what I'll tell you about the inequalities here, this one's a multiple choice question. They have all of the answers written out. They have the solution, they have the interval notation, and then they have the graph. So we just have to decide which one of those is correct, okay? 25 and 26 are not multiple choice. So I kind of want to see like the same basic idea. Solve it for x, write your answer in interval notation, and then you got a number line here that you can plot some numbers and shade it on, okay? The difference between 25 and 26, this one is just a simple inequality because we only have one inequality in it. This one is a compound inequality because we have two inequalities. But what do we assume the word to be on number 26? And or an or? If there's nothing written here, what kind of statement would we assume to be there? And, yeah. So this is an and what that tells me is typically the two graphs are going to meet in the middle. That's not true 100% of the time, but typically the graphs will meet in the middle. Which means you'll have like two different ends to your graph. Okay, I know this one says interval notation. Keep that in mind on number 25 also. Let's write our answer in interval notation here as well. We talked about it a lot when we did it on our homework, so we want to keep it consistent here as well. Okay, and then finally, the last page. Going to solve the two inequalities out. So you have a simple inequality, you have an and then we have an or. Okay, this one's an or statement, two separate inequalities. You're going to solve them both out. Okay, and already yesterday I saw several times people would solve it, and they did a pretty good job of solving it except for one thing. As I look at this inequality right here, subtract 1, pretty straightforward. Then I divide by -5. Well, what happens when I divide by -5? You got to flip the sign, okay? So you cannot forget to flip the sign when you solve an inequality, okay? It's really, really easy to forget. We talked about it the other day. This is probably the thing that people forget the most because they get so caught up in solving, they don't keep in mind that, hey, this is an inequality and I got to think about if I need to flip the sign or not. Okay. 28, we did some problems like this in our homework. We did one together in our notes. This one, both companies are often a commission. We did one where like one of the companies was commission and the other one was just a straight salary. Here you're comparing two commissions, and the question wants to know at what amount will company A's offer be better than be the better of the two? Okay? What is the amount above which? And so really that is, they're asking for the break-even amount. When are these two the same? Okay? Anything above that, then company A will be better. Hello. I haven't seen her. So, yeah. I thought maybe she was taking a picture. Yeah, you bet. And then the last question is the one where you're just going to use the stat function in your calculator to get slope-intercept form of the equation. I don't really know why. Sometimes, like when we have problems like this, they write the answer a little bit different, and I don't know if it's to throw you off or what, but just notice that like when you get your answer, this number here is going to be your slope, okay, because x is listed second. So the number in front of x is always your slope. When you do it in the calculator, I think it's called the a value. It's ax plus b instead of mx plus b. But a would be like your slope. And in all of these situations, they wrote x second. We typically will write x first, but they wrote x second. So make sure that's the number that's your a value or your slope. And then the b value is the number that's listed first in each one of these equations. So just a little bit different way of writing it. So keep that in mind as you're looking at your answers. And if you need help with that, let me know, and I can help you with that on your calculator. Okay. Any other questions that you guys have that you ran into yesterday or anything else? Everybody got a review yesterday, right? Everybody has one?